Shrikant, what if I told you that all the reasons you've been given for why the Mahabharat war happened, those were not the real reasons?
Draupadi wasn't the reason for the war.
Well, Draupadi wasn't, and nor were the other reasons you were given.
Okay. What were the reasons?
So we will look at that today. We will understand the geopolitics which ensures that this war was going to happen no matter what. And we will also understand why a nobody like Krishna suddenly became the most important person there.
Channel band karwaega ye, he just called Krishna nobody. But I'm sure Naveen has his reasons. So we'll wait, listen to all of the reasons and then judge him on what he said. Preferably don't judge him. Please continue.
So this happens in politics all the time. Okay, that you give some reason to the public so that they will agree with you, but the real reasons are different.
Okay.
Why did US invade Iraq the second time?
How did we go from Mahabharat to the US and Iraq? But I think they invaded Iraq because they wanted to find weapons of mass destruction. Or at least that was the reason given.
That was the reason given. The real reason, according to a lot of experts, is that US wanted Iraq's oil, right? US dependence on foreign oil was becoming a problem, and the OPEC countries were squeezing, and US wanted to thumb their nose at them. So US wanted to take over Iraq's oil fields, or at least for them to be under the control of a person who can be influenced by the US.
Halliburton.
And plus, yes, George W. Bush's government was close to major US oil companies. So if you don't believe me, take a look at this link, Wikipedia. All of this is described there. Okay.
Halliburton. Sorry, I have something in my nose and something in my throat today.
So let's look at geopolitics of the Mahabharat, right? So George W. Bush was pretty close to a lot of US oil companies, and many people think that that was one of the important reasons for the US war.
Yeah.
Right? So this kind of a, eating teeth are different from showing teeth. I'm just translating from Hindi.
खाने के दांत दिखाने के दांत is the Hindi muhavra.
Let's see what the corresponding thing in the Mahabharat was. So for that, we have to look at the geography.
Okay.
Right? So here is a map of India around that time. Okay. What you see is Hastinapur here.
Okay.
Right? That's where the Kuru kingdom was. Right? So it's all of this kind of.
Nice big place.
And what you can see here is that the Ganga flows through it, and the Yamuna flows through it, and like up there, the Saraswati is also there. So this is like fertile, important land.
Yeah.
It is the mountains here. Okay. So it is just at the foothills of the mountains. So it is still high ground.
Right.
Okay. And lots of rivers, important rivers. But then those rivers quickly flow away downstream.
Correct.
Okay. In those days, there were no big dams
To hold the water.
hold the water, right? So ultimately, the water going downstream, the kingdoms afterwards, those are the ones that got most of the benefit of the water.
Correct.
So there was always this tension between these people who are in strategically, geographically high ground, but these other kingdoms later on, which have more plain land, much more agriculture, and they are in some sense richer. Now, what is going on with the other kingdoms here? That is important, that we have to look at, okay?
All right. Let's look at the neighbors.
Yeah. So the neighbors, so let me show, this is kind of Kuru.
As you can see here.
Yeah. Now, this is Panchal.
Panchal, the kingdom of Draupadi.
Correct. Draupadi's father. I mean, Draupadi's kingdom is this one.
All right, fine, patriarchy.
So this Panchal is downstream on the Ganga. Okay. And what you see Kampilya here is Panchal's capital.
Okay.
Yeah. On the left, on the banks of the Yamuna, you see Mathura. Okay. So that's where Krishna and Balram are from. Okay. Right. Now, these are the two really important ones right here. And then further downstream, you see there is Chedi, and you must have heard of Shishupal.
Yeah.
So he was the king of Chedi here.
Chedi Shishupal. Yeah.
And then pretty much here is Magadh.
Oh.
And Magadh was downstream from all of them, Magadh had lots of plains. Magadh was the big daddy of that time. Okay, very rich, big kingdom. In fact, even after the Mahabharata, Magadh continued. In the long term, the Gupta kingdom, the Maurya kingdom, all of that is pretty much, downstream from Magadh.
We are kind of transitioning between epic and reality, history, mythology and reality here, very strangely.
That's the way we like it in India, right? We like to mix our epics with reality. So let's look at the possible realities here, right? So what's happened here is that one problem is that Panchal is kind of, squeezed between Magadh, this big kingdom on this side, and Hastinapur on the other side. Okay, Magadh has just started taking an interest in Panchal and started coming in here like this. And up here, Hastinapur had defeated Panchal and taken over this northern tip, Ahichhatra. You must have heard that.
Hastinapur occupied territory of Panchal, HOP.
This is a very famous story. This is where Drona sent his students, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, to humiliate Drupad, the king of Panchal, because Panchal had insulted Drona long ago. Okay?
Okay, I don't know this story despite it being famous. I'll have to look it up.
It's a lovely, nice little story.
Okay. But back to the geopolitics, please.
So, that northern tip had been taken over. So now Panchal is getting a little, unhappy from both sides.
Yeah,
on the other hand, let's look at Mathura. What's going on with those poor guys? Okay.
Okay.
What happened is that Magadh came to Mathura and beat them up.
Very ambitious people these are, and viciously ambitious.
Magadh was big enough to kind of take over everything if...
So they had expansion plans happening.
Looked like they had expansion plans, and initially they came from south, right? They had not yet come north to Panchal and Hastinapur, okay? But in the south, they soundly beat the Yadavs.
Oh.
Okay. In fact, if you remember, for a while, the Yadavs were beaten so badly that they ran away to Dwarka, Gujarat. And then when Magadh got a little, and went back to running his own kingdom, Jarasandh, that's when they came back to Mathura. But they are also smarting, right? They know that...
They want revenge, obviously, at this point.
They want revenge, but they know that alone, they are not powerful enough to do anything.
Clearly.
Panchal also knows that alone, it is just going to get into various kinds of trouble. So, both Panchal and Dwarka are looking for partnerships, okay? But I have a feeling that there wasn't enough common ground between them to have a strong partnership. And plus, even just the two of them were still not enough.
Not a match. What about this person?
Oh, that's another fun story, right? So when Magadh came and attacked Mathura, right? He attacked them 18 times, and 18 times Krishna and Balram managed to defend themselves.
Wow.
The 19th time they lost. Do you know why?
I think I should know this, but I'm very bad with
No, you
mythology.
shouldn't. Chedi, where Shishupal was. Shishupal was a Yadav. He was supposed to be on the side of Krishna and Balram. Instead, he defected to Magadh and he attacked them with Magadh. Traitor. And that totally, he is a traitor, and that's why they were able to defeat the Yadavs.
Okay.
In return, Shishupal got to run Chedi, and it looks like Shishupal was hoping that at some point he will inherit Magadh or at least become a big shot there. Okay. Now here are the tensions. Okay. Mathura and Panchal, they are both a little weak. They want to become strong.
Correct.
But even together they are not strong enough. Ideally, they would like all three of these, Hastinapur, Mathura and Panchal, to be one kingdom. Then it is big and important enough to kind of stand up to everybody. Yeah. Okay, so that's going on. There is Magadh that Krishna personally wants revenge against Jarasandh.
Correct.
And there is Chedi, the traitor Shishupal, who is also a thorn in their side.
Okay. Interesting. This is a very, very curious setup, good enough for a Bollywood movie.
There are many Bollywood movies on this. So what's the solution to this? First of all, Panchal, just to make their life easier, decided that having an alliance with Hastinapur by marriage, as soon as Arjun marries Draupadi, Krishna shows up on the scene with an even more brilliant idea. Why don't we do a three-way alliance of Panchal, Hastinapur and Mathura? Okay.
Interesting.
Now think about this, right? At this point, really, the Pandavas are nobodies, okay? Because they had been kicked out, they had been sent to the forest, their dad had died, their mother came back and kind of were like living with the Kauravas, but it was charity.
Correct.
Okay. As soon as the Pandavas started saying, oh, we want to be treated like real princes, they got kicked out for another 12-13 years, okay?
Okay.
When they started coming in, okay, Panchal saw a way to get in, okay? That's why Draupadi married Arjun. And Krishna said, you know what, let's prop these guys up and we can use these to wrest control of Hastinapur. Because Duryodhan was hot-headed, right? He didn't think he needed any alliances. He didn't believe that he needed Panchal or Mathura, right? So they would not have made any progress with him. So instead, they decided, let's take these guys. They have a reasonably defensible claim to the throne. So let's give them backing and let them fight for the throne.
I thought they had the OG claim to the throne.
That's a very complicated story, right? The reality is that Dhritarashtra was a king and his son was on the throne, right? So their OG claim was still had to be, you know, people, they had to convince people and they might not have gotten it, right? Possession is 9/10 of the law. So problem is, and that's what happened, right? When they were nobodies, their claim to the throne just got kicked out and they were kicked out for 13 years.
Okay.
As soon as they got the backing of Panchal and Mathura, now suddenly poor Duryodhan has to listen to them because they have the backing of two powerful kingdoms.
Krishna behaving very much like CIA propping up regimes in the South American continent.
We will get to more CIA things that Krishna did very soon, right? Here is the interesting point I want to make. Panchal and Mathura both felt that they needed these people who have a defensible claim to the throne.
Okay. Like the Pandavas.
The Pandavas. And the reason for that is simple. Okay? Even kings need legitimacy. Okay? If for some reason Panchal and Mathura had gotten together, defeated Duryodhan, okay, and put some random guy on the throne, that would not have lasted. People do not.
True, and they couldn't themselves rule over the Kuru kingdom because they did not have the legitimate right to the Kuru throne.
Exactly. So legitimacy is needed, whether it is kings or modern dictatorships, right? For example, Arthur, to be able to rule England, needed divine right, and that's where that whole story has been made up of a sword being pulled out of a stone and the lady of the lake granting him that. And basically they were going around telling the people that God made me your king. And
that sounds very familiar.
So you have to listen to me, okay? And that makes it easier. Similarly, why did Shivaji feel the need to coronate himself as Chhatrapati? Okay, that's also well documented. The point is that before that, his father was one of the Sardars. And even if he managed to take over a bunch of forts there, he was just some guy.
Some upstart at that point.
At that point, problems that could happen is that some other Sardar from the neighboring locations could come and take over.
Correct.
And as far as the people are concerned, that would be fine. I mean, one Sardar takes over another Sardar. So they're still, you know, it's tricky. But instead, as soon as he coronated himself Chhatrapati, now suddenly he is legitimate. He is different from all the other Sardars. Now, if the other Sardars try to plot against him, the people will not
stand for it,
And in general, just the other Sardars won't even get enough support. Support is needed.
Correct.
If somebody manages to become the king without legitimacy like this, it becomes easy for someone else to overthrow, someone else to plot against them, and so on, right? So this kind of legitimacy is needed.
It's not enough to just be a leader, you also have to become king.
You have to have some reason for being special, right? Otherwise, any other guy can replace you.
Correct.
You have to give them reasons that I am special.
All right. So that's why they needed to associate themselves or ally themselves with the Pandavas.
Correct. So now, Pandavas, who would have gotten nowhere by themselves, but they did have a legally defensible claim. Now, suddenly they are propped up by these two powerful neighbors.
They got investors basically.
So they got investors.
Yeah.
And they went and made their play. And as we know, that ultimately resulted in the Mahabharata war.
All right. We skipped a couple of steps here, but yeah, essentially the geopolitics of this entire situation was the crux of the story. Very interesting. Yeah. While all of this was happening, why did Magadh stay quiet? They should have seen this coming. They should have.
So obviously, nothing important can happen as long as Magadh is sitting there.
Yeah.
Right? Krishna realized that, plus he did want to take revenge, right? And before that, you couldn't even get to Magadh because Chedi is in the way, right? So Krishna did what any CIA operative would have done, right?
Okay.
The first thing he did was assassinate Shishupal, okay, right in front of everybody, and he gave a legitimate reason for that. Oh, he insulted Bhishma, how can he do that? And plus he made up some complicated story about how he had promised Shishupal's mother that he would forgive 100 sins of Shishupal's, and the 101st one is when he killed him. Okay. So that people would not complain too much.
Papu ka ghada bhar gaya.
After that, he knew that they would never be able to defeat Magadh in an all-out war, right? So again he went and tricked.
Okay.
Right? He took Bhim and I think Arjun to Magadh, and there they just behaved badly until they were brought in front of the king Jarasan, and there Bhim just challenged Jarasan to
trial by combat.
Now the right thing for Jarasan to do, if he was smart and understood geopolitics, was to say, shut up, put them in jail. But unfortunately, he was like generous and dildar and, oh, I follow the laws and the law says trial by combat. And in the trial by combat,
he got torn into two pieces, thrown on either side.
But see, what we have been saying over and over again is you can't just take over a kingdom like this, right?
Right.
So what they did was they installed Jarasan's son on the throne as the king in Jarasan's place, but he was not the same as Jarasan. So he was much more amenable to them and much more easily influenceable. Yeah. US does this all the times, replace one leader with another leader so that the second one will listen to them.
Like I said, very CIA operation like.
But so the point is exactly this, that in those days and in modern times, geopolitical realities is what drives changes. That is what really makes things happen. And then afterwards, we put some stories to it, like putting lipstick on a pig.
Okay, sorry, that was funny, that was awesome. But yeah, geopolitical change drives changes in regimes and also drives some really amazing movie and TV plots.
Yeah. In fact, what we like to say here on this channel is that geography is history. Yeah. So if you like this episode, check out our other episode where we talk about why geography has made US the #1 country in the world.
Yeah, it has no mention of CIA, but it has plenty of geography that you'll find interesting. Trust me, believe me. Shrikant, Naveen, Future IQ.